Good Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Plenty of Browns to talk about, including some developments last night and into today regarding the Deshaun Watson case, with now 24 plaintiffs claiming some sexual misconduct against Deshaun Watson. Albert Breer from the Monday Morning Quarterback was on the Pat McAfee show talking about this 24th person that has come forward and joined the civil lawsuits against Deshaun Watson. Here is Albert Breer today from the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Deshaun thing sort of like it's dominating a lot of the conversation, I would say, that I'm having. And I think no one really knows what the number of games is going to be. And I think what happened over the course of the last week that's interesting, like the 24th case, the 24th case wasn't as expected, I think, as the 23rd. And I think that there's an important nuance in the way these things have happened, in that I think there was an expectation from the league, from the Browns, that the 23rd lawsuit could come. I think this latest one is at least a little bit of a surprise to the league. I'm not sure that Deshaun told the Browns, and I think there's going to be some questions about, how upfront Deshaun was. And I don't know whether he was completely upfront or he hid the fact that this incident happened at all. But I think that that's a pretty big thing.
And again, it's important to note Albert Breer is saying he does not know if Deshaun Watson made the Browns aware of that. The league was not necessarily aware of it. So the 24th is one that could be a surprise. Nobody knows for certain except the Browns and Deshaun Watson. But that's the talk around NFL circles. Let's take a look at this from Pro Football Talk as well. This tweet, the fact that Deshaun Watson sued Monday by a person whose name wasn't previously known to the legal team could create multiple problems for Watson, including a possible, and keyword there, possible, again, not definitive, void of his guarantee contract, that many $230 million in guaranteed as well. With that, let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from Dawg Pound Daily. Casey, some things to unpack there. Again, Albert Breer is saying hasn't heard for certain whether he knows it. If the Browns were surprised by that, that would be a concern, obviously.
Oh, that would be hugely concerning. Like they talked about all the work they did vetting Watson in the process to sign him. But they could have been blindsided by this. That is completely possible. And I'm not sure what the contractual language is that would lead to him having his contract voided, but nothing's off the table at this point. And it just depends on how the league views everything. Because I was under the understanding before this process that they were going to wait until everything was settled legally before they made their decision. But now it sounds like they're comfortable weighing in ahead of time. But with all this new information coming in, and the court of public opinion being what it is, this is hugely concerning for Watson.
Yeah, and for the Browns as well, because again, it's not anything that is criminal. Again, it's important to note this is another civil claim against him. They didn't know the name, so when asked, Rusty Hardin said they can't respond to it because they didn't know the person that was making the claim until it was made public yesterday. So the 24th one, a little bit of a surprise in that they didn't know who it was. But there's a paragraph in the contract, and this Pro Football Talk article went into it. There's a paragraph in the language that they believe could, if the claims were things that are new, that weren't known at the time of the contract, that could potentially void the guaranteed contract. They're a long way from doing that, but that is the reason you put that kind of language in a contract.
It's crazy to think this could get messier than it already is, but it seems to be trending towards that right now.
Yeah, and again, it just, it's like a parade. So along those lines, the lawyers have taken to the court of public opinion to try this without question. That's the reason this is being leaked and that's being leaked, and you're putting footnotes that have past settlements in it that Busby, the attorney for the plaintiffs, has done. Charles Robinson knows the two lawyers and has done some work on this. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports was on NBC's Sports Brother from Another podcast. Here is Robinson on the lawyers that are going to battle in this Deshaun Watson case.
I talked to another experienced litigator here in Texas who's friends with both and who says they're two of the best litigators that you could ever find. I mean, if you're looking for lawyers, 1-2, it would be Rusty, Tony, Rusty, whatever. But he did say to me about Tony, he said the thing about Tony is he blitzes you and just constantly comes at you until you make a mistake. He's like, the things that he says overtly, the way he uses the media as a tool to roll out allegations or suits or whatever else that he feels is necessary. He says even the most experienced litigators, if this goes on long enough, they make a mistake, and it's because of Tony's constant aggression in the media. And now he did say to me, I think Rusty is probably one of the experienced ones who can avoid that over the long term, but let's see. So you could look at it from that vantage and say, Tony has basically just kept coming like the tide. And eventually Rusty was just like, okay, we have to start responding to this because he's already beaten the narrative into the ground.
And again, we're starting to see that. I mean, we know what each of them is going to say before they say it at this point in time.
Yeah, and that aggression may have led to what Harden did last week by going on the radio and just making some very unsavory comments, and something that I don't think he's doing his client any justice by going on air and, say less, if anything, going on what he did last week on the Houston program and kind of inferring that, not saying that Watson did this, but if it did, it's not that out of the ordinary. And those are very unsettling things, and maybe that is due to Busby's aggression. But I don't think that either of these attorneys are really coming off too well. I was aware of actually both these attorneys before this suit ever came in. I've known of Rusty Harden since the Roger Clemens stuff when he had to go in front of Congress. And Busby is kind of renowned for being that lawyer who gets you the settlement in Houston. Like he's always had that kind of rep. So they're just slinging mud back and forth. And I don't think Watson's any better off for any of it.
No, I agree. The people that are coming off the best in this are the Miami Dolphins, who didn't want to touch the trade unless there was a settlement with each and every one of the plaintiffs. So that's looking like the wise move, at least from a public relations thing. All right, let's enough of that. Let's move on to some football. What do you think of the Browns' contract with David Njoku? Just as you look at that, are they crazy to pay David Njoku that much money?
I mean, if you're looking on past performance, yeah, you would say they're crazy. But you're looking at a guy who's 25, will be 26 when the season gets here, has all the potential in the world, and they believe he's coming into his own. And a lot of this is contingent upon Watson. Like this offseason, I've watched every snap that Watson has taken in the pros. That man owns the middle of the field. Njoku stood to gain a lot from him being the quarterback. So if you're, it's kind of the way you kind of view free agency. You don't want to pay for what someone's done. You're going to pay them for what they're going to do. And in that kind of vein, that's how they view the Njoku signing. And I know it seems like a lot now, but when, these other tight ends that are going to be coming up get their bag, it's not going to look that crazy of a contract. But if you're just basing it on past numbers, yeah, it does seem kind of crazy.
So let's take a look at this before we go to break. Under the radar AFC players who can be stars in 2022. CBS Sports, they say Donovan Peoples-Jones. Peoples-Jones, an average of 18.8 yards per catch. Of players with 75-plus targets over the last 2 years, Peoples-Jones is only behind Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's at 19.0, so 0.2 yards per catch in yards per catch. So, Casey, the question I have for you, do you think DPJ is the guy that may step up and be the number 2 opposite Amari Cooper?
I was kind of banking on him being the number 2. And I don't know about him being a star, but he could make a big splash, especially on the national stage with Watson as his quarterback. He's done this with Mayfield so far, and it's his ability, because he's not really a burner per se, but he's someone who gets big chunk plays, has really good body control, and can really operate down the sideline. He definitely has that ex-receiver kind of like vibe when he's out there, that he's going to be that guy that can get you 18 yards of reception. And conversely, like, over 20 yards per target. He's very efficient in that way. Last year, he started off super efficient, and it kind of tailed off as the season went. If he has a consistent season all throughout, like in that manner, I think that he could be someone, I'm not, not Pro Bowl, but that next tier under. I think that's what he could be this coming season.
Yeah, he could be the guy that kind of takes away the attention from Amari Cooper, maybe lightens up the coverage a little bit for him. And that's kind of what you need him to do, him and maybe free up Njoku. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to some Baker Mayfield talk, including a voicemail from Truth and Reason about Baker Mayfield. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, hey, what's happening, everybody? Hi, Sports4CLE, and everybody out there, and all the peeps in the chat. Been busy lately, but I'm still listening. I just had a thought for a trade scenario. I hope I don't drag this out too long. But what if the Browns were to work a deal to get Jimmy Garoppolo here and send Baker to San Francisco? San Francisco is not keeping Garoppolo. He is not happy. Baker's probably less expensive and only there for a year, and if they like him, they can keep him. And perhaps when Garoppolo comes to Cleveland as a potential backup to Brissett, he seems like a good guy that he'd be willing to do, especially on a really good team. Maybe they can rework his contract to fit in. Hey, it's just a thought. I mean, I'm just flipping them out there like everybody else. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But hopefully they'll get it done soon. And who knows what to, with Watson being out, maybe for a year. Who knows? I think Jimmy G is a great option to carry the team for at least for a year. We'll see. Come on, AB. Make something happen. Anyways, you guys have a great day. Talk to you later. Love the show. Woof, woof.
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Casey, again, Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker are kind of right there. Garoppolo, I believe it's $27 million for the year, so there's that, and he's probably not going to want to take less than that.
Well, the caller is right about one thing. No one knows what's going to happen. But I don't see that being a trade that the AB pulls a trigger on for a few reasons, one of which, the money's not equal, and you got another different quarterback coming off of shoulder surgery. I just don't see it. I don't see the Browns trading for a quarterback in general with Baker. I don't think that that's going to be the avenue. I think, for better or for worse, I think we're waiting on an injury. I think that's going to be the easiest avenue in which to get Baker on another team. I think we're waiting for a team that thinks they can compete, and maybe they're not comfortable with a backup for a period of like 6 to 8 weeks. maybe like a Dak Prescott or a Matt Stafford goes down, I think that you might see something then. There's definitely a number they have in their head of money they'd be willing to eat to get rid of Baker, but I don't think they've reached that yet. I don't think anyone's come close. And if they had, I don't think Baker would be on the team.
All right, we'll get back to that in a minute. Before we get to that, let me ask you this. If you're Andrew Berry or Kevin Stefanski, and Coach Stefanski kind of skirted around it with a no comment, do you excuse Baker Mayfield from mandatory minicamp? The 49ers did that with Garoppolo. A little different because he really still can't throw yet. He's still rehabbing his surgery. But do you think the Browns say, Baker, you're all right, sit this one out?
I would, just to keep it amicable, just to keep relations between you and Baker's management and his team kind of comfortable, because you still want to be able to work out something. You know, you don't want to. The bridge is burned as far as him playing for Cleveland, in my opinion. But like as far as his management team, I don't think you want to like throw gas on the fire. Who knows if he goes on another podcast or what he does after that? I would just try to keep things as friendly as possible. You have no intention of playing him. I would excuse him.
All right, and we'll get to a question I have about that in a minute. But let's listen again. This is, again, Albert Breer from the Pat McAfee Show today, talking about a Deshaun Watson timeline and potential Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo type trades.
Well, so I think Deshaun's going to happen in July.
Okay, that's a punishment. That's a punishment happening in July.
I think the punishment happens in July because the discovery deadline is June 30th. That's the big one that the NFL is waiting for. I think the punishment happened. I think the sanctions come in July. And then I would say once we get past next week, you're going to hear more about Baker and you're going to hear more about Jimmy. The Browns have been willing to take on like a pretty big portion of Baker's salary. Like my understanding is they're willing. They've already, like offered to take on $9 or $10 million of his money. So the question is going to be, are they willing to go a little further than that? And then with Jimmy, it's just about getting him to the point where he can throw again. And so if he can demonstrate he can throw at the end of the month, which is sort of the target, then I think the dynamic could change with him a little bit too.
And same teams are interested in both of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, Carolina is the one that I think Carolina's like sort of the approach they've taken here is we want to get a look at Sam Darnold, Ben McAdoo's offense. We want to get a look at Matt Corral, how he comes along, coming from a simplistic college offense. And then we're going to reassess after we're done with the offseason program.
And Casey, I've seen Sam Darnold play a lot. I've seen Matt Corral play some. If you're needing to keep your job, Baker Mayfield, if he's reasonably healthy, is a better option than either of those guys. So that might be what they're waiting for.
Yeah, and they're owing Darnold just as much as Baker's getting this year. I think it's 18.9, Baker is definitely an upgrade over Sam Darnold. I don't think that's a question. There's a pretty large sample size for both, and Baker's turned in 2 good seasons out of 4. Darnold is 0 for 4. I don't think there's really much contention there. But I think if they were going to make that move, they would have already done it. I think if they don't know what they have in Darnold, I'm kind of puzzled by their coaching staff. I don't know how much McAdoo's offense is either going to improve his Darnold's overall abilities, capabilities on the field. So to me, it seems like they're running in place. They've got Corral. I watched the video of when they were drafting him. They were pretty content on drafting him where they did. I think the ship for him to go to Carolina has sailed. I could be surprised. I would love it if they actually pulled that off. That would be amazing. But the team that puzzled me in this whole scenario was Seattle. I couldn't believe they didn't go after him, considering what they have in their quarterback room. So I think we're just kind of like in a holding pattern. I think that's what we're going to be doing for the majority of summer.
Yeah, and that very well may be. And you're mentioning Drew Lock as the main. Drew Lock and Geno Smith. All right, I know this is hypothetical. But if Roger Goodell, commissioner, really drops the hammer, says, Deshaun Watson, you're suspended for a season, what do you do if you're Andrew Berry? Do you still have Baker Mayfield under contract? At that point, do you go to Baker Mayfield and say, look, you need to show you can play. We've got a better roster than any place that really wants to take you now. Come back, rebuild your rep. We know it's a 1-year deal. And it's mutually beneficial for both if you come in and play like you're capable of.
In that scenario, it would definitely be mutually beneficial for both to come to some understanding. But he was already kind of mentally gone even before they got Watson. When he was requesting a trade, prior to Watson getting traded for. I don't know where he'd be at mentally. I think they would definitely explore that. You definitely, if there was a season-long suspension, he's still under contract, he's still on your roster. AB and Stefanski, they'd roll out the red carpet, they'd do whatever they had to do. But would he meet them? Would he see it as the opportunity that we're laying out? Really good roster, right on the precipice. You could make a super good showing for yourself, increase your value tremendously, and then they would just kind of know that an inevitable divorce would be coming at the end of the season and try to make the best of it? Or would that just completely blow up the dynamics in the locker room with everything that's transpired and other players going on podcasts and saying certain things like, it's a powder keg, it would be, I think they'd probably switch us to being the in-season Hard Knocks if something like that went down.
The one thing would be, he would have to. Part of the knock is that he's got to be more of a team guy. He would have to be a team guy and embrace it. But it's an interesting hypothetical. What if? And nobody knows. But all right, before we go to break, let's take a look at this. NFL will hold its first ever event in Africa later this month. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who is from Gehenna, his family is from the area, is native to Gehenna, will be one of a select number of NFL players that are in Africa representing the league. You see, he will be in Gehenna. You see the other players that will be there. More than 100 players of African descent, born or first generation, born in the U.S., are in the league, and it's June 21st in Gehenna, a week of activities, and again you see Owusu-Koramoah, one of the guys that is going to represent the NFL. It's a huge honor, and it kind of shows how much the league likes what they see in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, both on and off the field.
Yeah, he's a star in the making. He's going to be someone that he just explodes off the TV screen when you're watching him. He definitely sticks out. He's made a good account for himself, and he's well-spoken, and he's becoming one of those guys that I think could be like a really good ambassador for the game, especially, I see an OCU Manora, there's some other players, they're going to go over to Africa. That's huge for the expansion of the NFL, to make this like a global thing, like to give kids who have never seen this sport, they're going to get eyes on it for the first time. And maybe some of them have aspirations. And if they can develop some sort of like feeder system where people can train and talent identification and stuff like that, that could be huge. And it's really cool that Jeremiah is going to get a chance to kind of be one of the guys to bridge that gap.
Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Some thoughts about the roster and what Andrew Berry should do from one of the callers. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the roster and what Andrew Berry should do with some of the veterans here.
How you doing? This your man E.T. Long time no see. 2 quick questions. I heard a caller say that if the Browns don't have Super Bowl aspirations, they should trade Kareem Hunt if Deshaun is suspended. I actually want to argue the opposite. If Deshaun is suspended majority or the entirety of this year, then I think it'll be imperative to at least try to get Kareem back on a 1-year deal, because you want to have as many weapons as possible. That's the name of the game. And if we're not going to get him next year, we're not going to be able to do anything next year. We need to at least try to get him for the second season if he's going to play. So what do you think about that? Try to at least get Kareem back for 1 year if Deshaun missed the entirety or majority of the season. Second of all, that leads me to, if Deshaun misses all of this year, then what do you think the realistic expectation of a season with a full healthy Jacoby? If he played all this year, this is going to be the best team he ever played for. Do you think we can be a 9-10 win team with Jacoby? What do you guys think? Thank you. Have a nice day. Looking forward to the show. Tell Mary Kay I said, what's up?
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Casey, what I would say, yes, if you can find a way to extend Kareem Hunt and not completely mess up what you value that position is salary-wise, I think the Browns missed Kareem Hunt more than people want to say. Didn't play many games last year. As far as a 9-10 win team with Jacoby Brissett, probably. Look at it this way. The quarterback play for Baker Mayfield last year, and it was part of the injury, whatever it was bottom of the starters, bottom tier of the starters, and they won 8 games with that. Jacoby Brissett, I believe, would be an upgrade over that, at least into the middle of the starters.
Yeah, for the first part of that question, yes, sign me up for more Kareem Hunt if they think that's an option. You know, I don't know how much money they think they can invest in the running back room, but if they could ever work out a way to keep Kareem Hunt on this team long term, I would be all in. But for the second part of that question, what would this team look like season long with Jacoby? I agree with you. I think a healthy Jacoby is going to be an upgrade over what we saw out of Baker last season. And with the way this defense is coming along and the weapons on offense, it is not crazy to think that they could be a 9 or 10 win team. And I don't know if that's enough to get you in the playoffs, but it has you right there, has you right at that 6 or 7 seed level. And I think it's a realistic expectation for where this team is at roster wise, with all 3 elements coming together, to think, could Jacoby lead them to the playoffs? It is possible.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say, I think the defense is going to be really good. I like what they have done, and I think the defense could very well be dominant. All right, this is from the 33rdteam.com. Those are a bunch of, we'll call them unemployed former GMs and front office types. They write on a website, tiering the best offensive lines in 2022. And Tier 1, best group in the NFL with strong play across the offensive line, premier talent at the offensive tackle positions, Eagles, Chiefs, Browns, and the Detroit Lions. Hard to argue that. I know you and I have talked a little bit. Guards are really good. Tackles were injured last year. Nick Harris, a little bit of an unknown.
Yeah, when just looking at that list, I'll say right now it's impressive that Kansas City is on it, because they just assembled that last year, and they did a tremendous job. I mean, just from left to right, they're solid. Detroit actually has a very surprisingly good offensive line. And then the Eagles, they kind of consistently do this. They have a new left tackle in Jordan Mailata, who he's actually coming along. He was an ex-rugby player, but they were able to identify that talent, and he's fitting in well. The Browns are right there with them among the tip of the spear when it comes to the offensive line. But they have the X factor. we have Bill Callahan. That's who's going to lead the charge for the Browns. Like that is something that you can't quantify, to have an offensive line coach who's also the running game coordinator with that much experience and this kind of talent to work with. So I think that would give the Browns a slight edge over those other three teams.
Yeah, I'm with you. He is, without question, one of the best offensive line coaches in the game, and he might be one of the best of all time, and that does help, without question. All right, the same group, the 33rdteam.com, every team's most glaring weakness, and this one was a little bit of a surprise. They say the Browns, it's the center. J.C. Tretter moved on. Nick Harris served as a solid backup. Will now step into the starting role, a bit of an unknown, played barely over 200 snaps in his career. The one thing that, we've talked about a couple of times on this show that was brought up by one of our guests, might have even been you, Nick Harris was the starter Monday through Thursday. So he's got a little bit more chemistry with those guys than most backup centers would.
Yeah, that's something they're obviously not taking into account, is how the practices have been, utilized over the last 2 years, and seeing how JC just was not a participant until Fridays. But like they said, he had 200 snaps. I mean, the vast majority came at guard. They didn't even come at center, so I don't even know why you would even count those. It is what it is. Like, the Browns know what they have in Harris, so they wouldn't put him in this position. And they've also insulated the position by getting a solid backup in Pocic. But I mean, I get why Harris is an unknown to the world, but people who've been paying attention to the team, and we have a better inclination. He's been running with the ones in practice, and when he finally got his opportunity to play center in a game, he did outstanding. He's young. He's coming into his own. He's trying to work on his body, try to get a little bigger to stand up against some bull rush and stuff like that. But like, unknown, yes, but I am very optimistic that Nick Harris is going to be the center for this team for a long time.
Yeah, and you know what? I'd go back to what we were talking about before. Bill Callahan is a guy that knows what it takes to play center, and if Bill Callahan says he's okay, I think we're probably pretty good at the center position. Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we get back, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about some of the Deshaun Watson talk between the attorneys. There's also some developing news with Deshaun Watson and all that's going on. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns acquisitions and all that's going on with Deshaun Watson.
Hi, this is Stan from Youngstown. I was really excited about the Browns season with all the acquisitions and the returning vets and draft picks. But after hearing Deshaun Watson's lawyer the other day, I think it kind of put a damper on my thoughts for the season now, because of course, the quarterback is the most important position on the field, and I was really had an upbeat feeling about Deshaun. Now, after Harden's comments, his lawyer's comments, I'm a little worried now because he put his man Watson under the bus. And I just have a bad feeling about this thing. My excitement has been completely down. Yes, I love the show. Thank you for taking my call.
And as always, we appreciate all the calls. And Casey, I get it. It doesn't seem like it ends. And, and I think Rusty Harden was trying to get out in front of what was going to happen earlier this week, and it didn't work. Nope, that one. Don't do that one again because that didn't work.
Yeah, I agree. It felt like he was just trying to get out in front of some narrative, and poor choice of words. And but just in general, this baggage that has come along with Deshaun Watson has put a cloud over everything, and it's made it hard. It's made it hard to be excited for the upcoming season. It just feels it's muddy. It's a real muddy situation. It's murky. You want to be excited for your team. You want to feel good about the players on your team. And with all this outside noise and everything that comes with Watson, it's dampened that a great bit.
Well, and so along those lines, you're not going to like seeing this. This is from the New York Times, and it is kind of a developing story. New York Times, Watson has met at least 66 women for massages over a 17-month period, far more than previously known, had help from the Houston Texans, including NDAs, in making those appointments. Again, that is from a New York Times article that has just hit. So it's kind of developing. And again, we don't have any resolution to it, but in the court of public opinion, where, let's make this very clear, that's how it's going to be judged by the NFL. That's not a good thing right there.
No, I had heard the number 50, that it was going to be over 50. So 66, it's absurd to me. And to see the Houston Texans had any hand in facilitating any of this is kind of weird to me. Like, when Watson gave his introductory press conference and they asked him if he had any regrets, and he said no regrets. And I understand he's trying to uphold the appearance of someone who's, not guilty of anything. He should have had regrets. From the jump, if you go to if someone on the Browns went to the training staff and said, hey, I need some deep tissue massage, the team would get you a vetted masseuse, who's a top 10 in the region. And it'd be, it wouldn't be this weird, like, do you think a stranger ever puts their hands on Tom Brady or Russell Wilson? Like, no, these aren't people you're finding on Craigslist or Instagram. Like, they would go get a professional to handle this. So he should have regretted not handling himself like a professional from the jump, because this isn't not behavior of a professional athlete.
And again, a developing story, so we'll continue to follow that, but it's not looking good for Deshaun Watson and the Browns, as the NFL will eventually rule. And again, it's not criminal, it's not civil, it will be violating the NFL's code of conduct. And we've said that a number of times. That's a very nebulous thing by design that the NFL will enforce. All right, let's get back to some football stuff. This one's kind of impressive. So, we've seen Myles Garrett, lift 600, 700 pounds. Take a look at this. He is jumping 64 inches. That is 5 feet 4 inches that your defensive lineman can just jump up to and carry his 280-pound frame up. That's, in some ways, Casey, that's more freakishly athletic than him lifting all that weight. That's not easy to do.
Explosivity. A man of that size should not be able to maneuver like that through gravity. Like that is, he is a freak of nature. They broke the mold, his physical abilities are unparalleled, really. If you look at even amongst the elite, he is elite. It's a marvel to watch.
All right, this one's kind of interesting as well. This is Pro Football Focus 2022 head coaching rankings according to tiers. So Tier 1, Hall of Fame coaches, you can guess, Bill Belichick, John Harbaugh, Andy Reid. Down in Tier 3, the quote-unquote average coaches, we've got Nick Sirianni, first-year coach of the Eagles, Doug Peterson, Sean McDermott of the Bills, Lovie Smith, Ron Rivera. Kevin Stefanski checks in at 19, which is significantly lower than he was a season ago. That's kind of what happens when you go from the playoffs to a sub-500. What are your thoughts kind of in that average coaching tier? What Pro Football Focus is telling me is Coach Stefanski has to earn his way up, kind of prove some things.
Yeah. And so what have you done for me lately, League? Like you said, I don't know what he was ranked last year, but I'm sure it was much higher coming off winning Coach of the Year. And then a subpar year, where, no one wants to say, like, he was holding Baker's hand throughout the season and kind of pulled them across the finish line to get them where they were at. But yeah, it is. He's going to have to string some more winning seasons together before he gets that season in, season out respect. And there's only one way to do that, and that's stack wins. So, I'm sure that if he were to lead a team, it didn't matter who the quarterback is. If he makes the playoffs this year, I'm sure next year he'll be in that top 15. And then if he could do it this following year, he'll just keep, moving up those tiers. But those first guys you named on Tier 1, they earned that right. They earned that respect through, decades now of just being a perennial all-pro type coach. And Stefanski, it's kind of, it started off great. There was a down period last year. It's all about how they respond this year.
Yeah, absolutely. If he makes playoffs this year, it's 2 out of 3 years, and you're right. He kind of goes up a tier, if you will. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. A thought about a guy to bring in for some young wide receivers. Then another possible trade suggestion for Baker Mayfield. We'll dive into that. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about an idea for a trade target for the Browns.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. Two things. As far as the quarterback room, the Browns are trying to get Fritz Magic. He's retiring anyway. They'll win for 6-8 games, whatever. He can win some ball games for us. Number two, the wide receiver room. Go with the young guys. See if they develop any. If not, then move on, get a veteran, whatever. Great show, as always, Dave. Love you, man. Bye.
All right, as always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, I liked the idea of Fitzpatrick, and then he went and retired on us, but you never know. I mean, if it, again, I preface this with we don't know how long Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended. if he is suspended for an entire season, you might think about that, although the offense is kind of designed for a quarterback in the mold of Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah. Yeah, you brought up Fitzpatrick's name last week when we were talking about the same scenario. And he must be a viewer of the show because he promptly retired after he heard that news. But he's coming off that hip injury. You know, that's a serious injury, and I'm sure weighed heavily on his decision to go ahead and retire. But I don't know if we've seen the last of him because he's got that kind of vibe of a Testaverde or a Steve DeBerg. Like if something happens in week 10, he's feeling okay, you might want to call him up because he go out there and sling a few games for you. The second part, though, the wide receivers, I think there are three groups that the Browns are going to go into camp with exactly who they have. I think the wide receivers, the tight ends, and defensive tackles, they're going to go into camp with who they have. But if nobody emerges, to kind of bolster that room, I think they'll look to add a veteran after roster cuts happen, later in July. So I do like the idea of rolling and seeing what you got first. Let's roll them out there, see what kind of competition you guys can get, and see if someone rises to the occasion and takes that spot. I think that's a good thing to have, especially have a room of really young guys like that.
Yeah, and you've got different skill sets. You think of speed, you got Schwartz, the athleticism. Isaiah Weston's a guy that's intriguing. Donovan Peoples-Jones has shown flashes. David Bell, everybody who's out at OTA says he doesn't drop passes. So you've got options. Like you said, one of them has to kind of separate. Okay, this is an article from Joseph Person from The Athletic, and he proposes a Baker Mayfield for Sam Darnold trade. Yikes. One possibility would be sending Darnold to Cleveland in a swap of top 3 quarterbacks from the 2018 draft. Browns look to be set with Jacoby Brissett as Watson's backup. If the Panthers add a draft pick sweetener or otherwise to convince Cleveland to take Darnold, money would be a wash. And again, that's because both Darnold and Mayfield were in the same draft. They both had their 5th-year options picked up, so it's 18.9. I don't know about that one. Yeah, I don't. How badly you want a draft pick?
Man, I'm starting to get a migraine coming on. I can't see it. I don't see trading one headache for another headache. That's not an avenue that I expect to see AB explore at all. I don't think that's happening. I don't think you're going to see Sam Darnold lining up under center or wearing a Browns jersey. It's not going to be in the cards. Man, I don't like thinking about it. To be honest.
I would. I'd rather they try to convince Baker Mayfield and have Baker Mayfield as the guy. All right, before we take another quick break, earlier in the show we heard from Charles Robinson from the NBC Brother from Another podcast. This one's really interesting. Talks about the PR battle that is going on between the two lawyers, the lawyer for Deshaun Watson, Rusty Hardin, Tony Busby, who's representing now the 24 plaintiffs.
Deshaun Watson had pieces of the video depositions leaked, which is, they're not under seal, so it's not illegal, but it's a huge breach of etiquette between the attorneys, okay? I think that pissed off Rusty Hardin. He's like, okay, what are you doing? I think the fact that Tony Busby inserted the fact that there were settlement negotiations and he put the monetary amount out there in the 23rd lawsuit when he said Deshaun Watson had offered at that time the 22 plaintiffs $100,000 each to settle their suits. And that was something that occurred at the behest of the Miami Dolphins, said, settle the lawsuits, settle the civil suits. I got into this with a multitude of sources about how this unfolded. The way it was described to me was the Dolphins said, you got to settle these suits for us to entertain this trade. Deshaun, his legal team, they did make that offer, $100,000 per plaintiff to get it settled. And that initially, as many as 20 of the 22 plaintiffs were on board with that global settlement. A little time passed and 2 others pulled away. So it ultimately ended up being 18 that were willing to go for the global settlement, 4 who were not. And the Dolphins simply were like, no, it's all or none. This is how this has got to be. And that's kind of how that happened. Anyway, that was all supposed to be confidential. And Tony Busby inserted it into the 23rd lawsuit, this idea that Deshaun Watson had offered each plaintiff $100,000. So I think that's part of why you're seeing this get contentious.
Yeah, without question. And NDAs for lawyers, huh? Hey, yeah.
Oh, man. The mudslinging is going to a new level now, and it's only going to get worse in the next few weeks. They said June 30th is discovery date.
Yep.
I think that's when everything's going to come to a head.
Yeah, and I'm guessing shortly thereafter, the any type of ramifications, fine. Now, the other thing, though, is there's always, as more of this comes out, there's always the commissioner's exempt list that comes into play. So we will keep our ear out for that. Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at 3 Browns who will have impact years and could be surprises. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. So three Browns that are surprises who will have big impact years for the Browns. This is from Dog Pound Daily. We've got Jacob Phillips, linebacker, who was banged up, number 3. Number 2, defensive tackle Tommy Togiai. And number 1, Harrison Bryant. So Casey, when you look at that, just kind of thoughts of guys that could have impacts in a big way as surprises.
Jacob Phillips, he's flashed every time he's been on the field. His problem's been availability. He has had serious health problems, since he came in the league. Missed the majority of last year. I believe it was maybe a torn triceps. But the team shows you what they believe in him, but they didn't season-long IR him. They IR'd him in time to bring him back so he could get some more experience. But if he could just, figure his health situation out, where he could stay on the field, he's dynamic. He's long, he's rangy, sideline to sideline. He's always he's to the ball, And if they could get someone like that to pair up with JOK, because this team usually only runs 2 linebackers anyway, that could be a really dynamic pair to have back there as a linebacker spot. But the name on that list, it might be a surprise to some, but it won't be a surprise to me. I think Harrison Bryant is in line for a really big year. Now, I don't think he's going to put up gaudy numbers. I think he is going to be the second tight end in this offense. But I think the attention that Njoku gets, I think is going to free up Bryant. And I think you're going to see him excel, especially in the red zone. I think he has a huge opportunity to lead this team in touchdowns. Tommy Togiai, though, that would be a really pleasant surprise because he was drafted to be that run stuffer. And that's what we need to see out of him. We need to see someone who can be stout and take on double teams and kind of be that hammer in the middle. So if he's able to do that in the second year, I think that would be huge. And we're looking at a guy that should have been in college last year. He came out kind of a year early. So we'll see what he looks like because he's strong as an ox anyway. But after a year in the Browns strength and conditioning program, we'll really get to see what he's made of.
Yeah, and Togiai, again, that run stuffer is something that's open. Finding somebody can step into that role and earn a lot of playing time. And I'm with you. Harrison Bryant is a guy that you can potentially split out to try to get some mismatches with him. So the red zone, he could be a big target. This one's from the Bleacher Report. NFL players who will not, so they won't live up to the hype in 2022. For the Browns, they say tight end David Njoku. The departure of Hooper should help his numbers, but Njoku still will be competing with Harrison Bryant for targets, very run-heavy offense. Every time I see David Njoku, I'm like, that guy's a mismatch. Find a way to exploit him.
Yes, he is a walking mismatch, that's for sure. I wonder if Njoku would have been on this list had he not signed that contract. I think that's what the hype, is he going to meet the hype? And if we're measuring this in just numbers, probably not. He's probably not going to see 100 targets like these other elite tight ends like Kelsey. And I think Mark Andrews saw 154 targets last year. That's not on the table for Njoku. But I think he's a player that's going to see maybe 70, 80 targets. For him, it's about efficiency and displaying that athleticism, like yards after the catch. He could be the best tight end in the league at that, And I think that's really what they need to see out of him. You need to see 8 yards per target and be efficient and just be that athletic mismatch that the Browns need him to be. If he does that, he meets the hype for me at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I see him running deep seams and catching the ball and making some big plays. Casey Kinnamon, appreciate you hopping on, spending the entire show with us last minute there. Mary Kay was scheduled to join us. She is working on a Deshaun Watson type story. So we appreciate the late notice and you spending the entire show with us. Thanks very much, Casey. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, not a problem. Thank you guys for having me on.
All right, Casey Kinnamon, make sure you read him, Dog Pound Daily. Before we go, the USFL getting ready for their semifinals and their championship game to be played down in Canton, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. Daryl Johnston, former NFL fullback with the Dallas Cowboys, a Fox broadcaster as well, involved very much with the league, talked about why the league decided they wanted to be in Canton for their championship weekends.
At the end of the year, with the opportunity to come to Canton, Ohio, and be a part of Hall of Fame Village, be able to have our games held there, our playoff games there, to be able to crown our first champion, at Tom Benson Field, that is something very, very unique, very, very special. I remember all the way back in January when this was hinted at. It was not confirmed yet, but it was in discussion. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that would be the most unbelievable experience for these guys to be able to go through the season, really finish the season for the first time. There's been a number of these leagues that have tried to do this over the past couple of years. For the USFL to complete that first season, go to the playoffs in Canton, Ohio, and crown their first champion at Tom Benson Field is just an unbelievable opportunity. So for all of us with the USFL, can't tell you how excited we are to work through our first season, to have some ups and downs, to have some bumps, getting better every day, getting better every week, just like our teams. As a league, we want to be showcasing our best football at the end of the regular season and bringing that brand of football to Canton, Ohio. We feel like we're going to achieve that goal, and we can't wait to get up to Canton and cap this whole thing off in Canton, Ohio at the Football Hall of Fame.
Again, that was Daryl Johnston talking about the USFL. The United States Football League will hold their semifinals as well as their first championship game, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. The playoff semifinals come up in a couple of weeks, right down the highway at Tom Benson's Hall of Fame Stadium. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests Hayden Grove from The Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.